Gather round your town when things are on the up or things are falling down. Celebrate the hard times, stay passionate through the lows. Find strength in the chaos, no matter which way it goes. It's not easy being blue. Heartbreak comes in many ways, the hardest times, the darkest days, but all these things get washed away with us, with us. The highs might not come every day, but memories do, and memories stay. Enjoy that moment anyway with us, with us, with us. It's not easy being blue. It's not easy being blue.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the View from the Medway FanCast in partnership with Gillingham FC Supporters Club and Her Game 2, and sponsored by Snodhurst Used Car Sales and Service Station and Wiki Creative. We are here this evening to talk about the programme, but before we get started with the man who's no doubt going to have a big head himself, Mr. Stuart Lewis, we are going to talk and quickly just give a shout out to others that have rallied for the programme. So Eddie, Jim, Sarah, Dimitri, Chris, Hayden, Matt, Nick, Nigel, Stevie and Trev. But without further ado, we are joined by Sir Stuart Lewis. And how are you, mate? Live from Spain.
Bienvenido. How are you?
Yeah, very well, mate. I bet Tony's absolutely ecstatic that you're spending your time this evening on Sunday to talk about the programme with us. But I'm sure
she was delighted. Yeah, she was over the moon. She loves the programme. They fit nice and neatly in her recycling bin. So yeah, she's over the moon.
Absolutely.
No, it's nice here, and yeah, thanks for inviting me on. It's obviously been a bit of a journey over the last few weeks, and yeah, there's a story behind it, as you can imagine.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. So before we do get into it, what does the programme mean or symbolise for yourself?
Three things, really. I would say history, tradition, and education. Obviously, the football club has produced the programme for over 100 years, and I think that, obviously the tradition, the history side speaks for itself, but the educational side as well, because you can pick up programmes from the 50s, 60s. There's so much information there. You can look at old players, how their careers panned out. You can look at youth team results, fixtures, and you can see how a player's developed. You can look at old adverts of, shops that used to be in Chatham High Street, or who was the local taxi company. Are they still going? Are they around? There's, it's an encyclopedia of local information, really. And anyone who, and I'm loads of fans do it, the excellent Gillingham scrapbook online. And I know lots and lots of fans use it as a resource, and quite a lot of programs are on there as well. And fantastic reading. And I think when you've got someone that's been going for that long, just to try and kill it off is, for me, when I got the news, it was just unacceptable. So I had to kind of find a way of changing that decision. Initially, funny enough, I literally found out by accident. I think I was reading someone online who was in hospitality saying, we're not even getting a programme next season. That was the first time it came to me. And I thought, that doesn't seem right. I've not heard anything about that. So that's when I made contact with Joe. I phoned Joe and said, is this true? He said, yeah, unfortunately. The numbers are just not stacking up. The whole thing made a quite substantial loss. The season just gone. And I thought, that doesn't sound very good. So I said, look, before you go any further with it, we need to have another conversation. And, if you don't mind, just tell me why it's in this position. Mm-hmm. And, we can get down some facts and figures, and sort of move on from there, really.
Yeah. So obviously, Joe said, but back end of last season and during the summer as well, he did say about the program's not going to be around. So when was it? When you was obviously you've already said about pretty much all of it, but hang on a minute, like I could do something here, and what was wrong with the original program?
Well, yeah, there was quite a lot wrong, really, and I think obviously, as you know, Chris, I've been in printing since I left school, so a number of years now. And I, to be fair, I do know a lot about it. I know a lot about the industry. I've got a massive book of contacts, etc. So I felt I was in a good place really to start with. So the first thing I had to do, I had an initial conversation with Joe, and I thought, look, I'll have a look at last season's program, thoroughly and try and analyse it, see what the problem is. And it came to light initially. I think we were looking at, it was 76 pages. The program. It was massive. It's almost like a magazine, really. But in there we had like 17 pages of advertising. I thought, really? I mean, do fans really want to be seeing that much advertising in the program? Probably not. And again, and the reasons for this, the cover price was £3.50. And obviously being in the industry, I know that paper rises, particularly over the last few years, have been quite steep. So that was another problem for me. And then obviously I had to talk to Joe and say, look, what we're selling numbers wise, what's happening, with the print run, etc. So there were a lot of issues to overcome, in all honesty. And there were other things like EFL stipulate a certain number of pages that if a football club does produce a program, they have to allow things like the Kellogg's, whoever's involved with the EFL, whether it's eBay, these sort of things, they have to go into the program. There's no choice there, so the club have to deal with that as well. So there were an awful lot of hurdles, but I thought, I'd done the analysis. I went back to Joe and I said, look, probably commercially, these things are going to cost about £1 to buy. And so he went away, he spoke to Shannon, and he came back to me, said, it's still not going to work. It's going to go. So I said, okay, cards on the table. Where do you need to be financially for this to be viable for the football club? He gave me a figure to work with, and it was quite tough. But I thought, to be honest, I think this is achievable. But I'm going to have to work in, within the printing industry with the people I know, the people I can trust to do it. Mm-hmm. Try and get these unit costs down, and try and make sure that we're only printing the number that's required, based on last season's sales, based on the number of programs that go into hospitality. Because what we were finding last season, there were probably a third of the print run was being wasted, and obviously it just doesn't stack up. I think the other problem as well, that a lot of the advertising within the program was, I'm not saying freebies, but they were like bolt-ons. If someone bought advertising through the club in another area, maybe they were getting a page in the program free of charge. That wasn't helping. Mm-hmm. I think the way the football club is set up, they have kind of cost centres for each areas, like obviously the mega store, the piano bar, these types of things. And the program really never stood a chance. If you've got almost free advertising there as its own cost centre, there's no hope really. So that certain things had to change moving forward. So yeah, we got to that position. I went back to Joe with another plan, and obviously he liked it. And I have to emphasise really that Joe didn't want to scrap the program. Really, it was all down to numbers, and the fact that they just couldn't continue running something that was going to make just really a few quid or make a loss. There had to be something viable that was going to add value to the football club over the period of the season. And I'm satisfied now. We've got to that stage.
Yep. Yeah, and you've pretty much knocked out two of my questions there, Stu. So,
okay.
It was meant to be. Was there, it met with any initial resistance really from the club, mate?
Yeah, to be honest, I think at the start, Joe said, look, it's never going to work, and he said, I don't want to scrap the program. I just don't see anything viable. And I said, look, you need to give me a little bit of time on this. And there was a lot of work there. I had to look at what the other clubs were doing, and funny enough, one of my contacts in the trade said, look, we're doing the program for Chesterfield we did it last season. He said, "I'll tell you what, I'll send you through some copies. Have a look at it, see what you think. This is what it's going to cost." I looked at it, and we kind of used it as a bit of a template, really. It was 40 pages as opposed to the 48 that we're looking to do. The material was a little bit on the thinner side, and I thought it's probably a little bit too far away from what we had last season. So it was a good marker, though. And I thought, I'll send the Chesterfield one in to Joe. I know that Shannon has sight of it as well. And we kind of worked with that, and we thought we'll work on this kind of template, but we'll just slightly improve it. There were other situations as well. I know Hartlepool would ditch their program, and there was a bad reaction to it, so they brought it back after a season. Shrewsbury Town were in a similar situation at the end of the season, where they went to their fans and they said, you know, we're going to give it another season. The fans were very keen to keep it. And the more I looked into this, and the more I looked at clubs, particularly in the Championship, that weren't doing a program anymore, it really came to my mind that really, in all honesty, they were literally being lazy. They didn't look at what was on the table, what was out there, what they could do. I think they just looked at it and thought, you know what, we can't be bothered with this. And I never got that feeling from us. I thought that, you know, the board were on side with it. They just had to get in a position where it was you know, going to add, like I say, just going to add value to the numbers at the end of the season.
Yeah. No, that's fine, mate. So, what are you able to talk us through a little bit about like costings and how next season it's going to be viable? Because if it wasn't viable this season, there must have had to be a lot going on.
Okay, yeah. So basically, why it wasn't viable last season, the print run was too high for a start. Like I said, there was a third of these being wasted. The unit cost being paid, I know Eddie banded around some figures, but you know, from what I remember on one of your shows recently, he banded around some figures. I don't think he was far wrong with those. I don't really want to repeat those, but it was the club were probably spending too much money. There was nothing actually wrong with the product itself. I don't, you know, they certainly weren't being ripped off of what they were getting, but it just didn't work with the numbers. It was too expensive. We were printing too many. We were throwing too many in the bin, really. And like I say, the advertising element as well. There was too many. I'm not going to. It's hard to call them freeloaders because I know that they support the club in different areas, but they were getting pages in there that probably weren't being costed out. If I would have been in charge, they'd have been costed differently, if you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. So looking at all that and thinking, look, we can reduce the number of pages, we can reduce the cover price. We don't need stacks and stacks of advertising in here, really. We only need, in all honesty, a page of paid advertising over the season, which would be open to the club internally, would be open to businesses externally as well, which is going to be, I know Joe's probably going to talk about this further, and Shannon as well, when it gets up and running. But with the main thing, obviously the print element, the unit cost has been significantly reduced because basically what I'm doing, I'm print managing this. So I'm literally buying it through the trade, if you like. And obviously the savings that I'm making by doing that are being passed on directly to the football club. Mm-hmm. So that's the way it initially makes it viable. Add into that a small element of proper paid advertising, and then we're in a situation where the numbers do change quite dramatically. And even based on last season's sales figures, and to be honest, I think that with the publicity around it, I think we will sell more, particularly if we have a better season. Last season we were all very disappointed where we finished up. We are expecting better things this time around. Obviously, more people through the turnstiles should equate to more sales, really. Yeah. I think we accept that, I call them program atheists. We know that there's an element of fans who've got absolutely no interest in this and totally understand that. But there are a bit of a hardcore that really have. So yeah. I am expecting a increased level of support for the program,
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. And to be fair, you could say, I don't know if I'm an atheist against it. I think I'm more, because I don't buy it, I kind of feel like a hypocrite when I am then supporting the keeping of it, if that makes sense. But I do understand the need and the necessity for the people that do want to keep it. So, I mean, and as we said before we come on, I'll have to buy one now, won't I? I suppose if you've gone to all this work, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you know, I'll be buying one. I know I'm getting a thing printed, but you'll see me buying one because it's like anything. I mean, people support the club in different ways, don't they?
Mhm.
People buy season tickets. People go in the factory. People
Yeah.
buy a pint before the game. They might want to, with me, first thing I do when I get in the Gordon Road, I'll be over to the shed. I'll buy a program. I want a Bovril. Love a Bovril. I've been promised quite a few free Bovrils actually after this.
A lifetime supply, isn't it?
People support the club in different ways, and all I would say about the program is if you haven't bought it for a while, give it a try.
Yeah.
I think there's something special about a printed thing. It's a bit like in some ways like a magazine or a book. You can touch it. It's not nice to have something in your hand. You can smell it if you want to, if you're a bit weird. It's an alternative to, the digital thing doesn't really work for me. I know it doesn't work for a lot of fans. Digital is very throwaway. I'm sure I've said to you before, Chris. I mean, I'm sure if you looked in your kitchen drawer, there's mobile phones in there with pictures from your holidays 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And old SIM cards and bits and pieces. And that really is the digital world.
Yeah.
But there's nothing the missus likes better than a loft full of boxes that are going to move with us next time we move for the programs. It's kind of like a bit of a tradition, really. So I would just say to people, give it a go. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it. Like you said, people like Eddie, there's a lot of contributors who give up their time and effort for it. Obviously, Phil inside the club, he does a lot of work. There's a designer as well, obviously on the outside, puts the thing together. It's a great piece of history and tradition that we really need to keep going. And from my point of view, I don't mind saying I've got a 5-year plan up my sleeve. I've said to Joe, we'll sit down next summer and look at see how things have gone, see what the numbers look like, and I'm ready for what comes my way because I'm totally convinced it will be a success this season, even if we sell as many programs as we did last season, we'll still be in a good place. But obviously, I'd really like to sell more.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that it kind of brings me nicely onto the next question, really. Like, how do you feel success will be judged next season with the program? I'm sure there'll be like an initial uptake because there will obviously that's the trend within everyday life. If something's kept, people will, but then it may fall off again. So, will it be a case of we give it another season, or will it just be a case of a season by season? We'll see how we go.
Yeah, I said to Joe, I think like anything, Gillingham Football Club is a business, so everything has to be under review. I mean, if all of a sudden, if we were selling chicken balti pies and nobody bought them, then they disappear.
Yeah.
I've said to Joe, I'm quite happy, next summer to sit down and see, areas we might be able to improve on. We might, I've already mentioned to him certain areas that I think are still wrong that need to be changed. We like I said, we need to make sure that people that are in the program are actually paying for the privilege for a start. Obviously, there are issues. There's, the football club will have contractual obligations to people to make sure we're in there. And I totally understand that, but I think we are in a good place. I think we're well poised to be in a better place with this moving forward. To be honest. Which is a good thing, but really, Shannon is the numbers lady. She will look at it, I'm sure, and say, look, I like it or I don't like it, and we'll all have to stand in line, won't we? And she's the boss.
I love her. She's become a really good friend. Like we speak on a semi-regular occasion. Go and have coffee with her every so often, and I think she's brilliant. But yeah, so obviously you've alluded to the fact that it will be a smaller program, and does it mean less advertisers and more content? And how does that work into the Impact's finance?
I think there will be slightly less advertising. There will be more content, even though it's a reduced number of pages. and I know that Joe and Phil are working round tweaking the design aspects of it currently, so that the advertising that the club have to do will still be there. It will be probably put, and the layout of it might be slightly different. So the people that need to be there, obviously, we value the big players, don't we? Like the Mems and people like that. We'd be totally lost without them. We're not trying to push people to one side, but I think the layout and the design of it would be slightly different. So make sure we incorporate the people that need to be there. Very important.
Yep.
We can't just push people to one side. But I think we're going to try and the program, not just for Gillingham, but for a lot of clubs, it's become rather corporate looking, a bit like almost like a brochure. Without knowing what's on the cover, we could be selling flats in Stratford or something. And I think we need to go back to a bit more of a traditional looking program. I mean, in the old days, it might have been 8 pages, and stuff like this, a little thing that you could stick in your back pocket. I'm not suggesting we go back that far, but I think it's certainly going to have a more traditional feel about it.
Yeah. It's not a question that I've put to you before, but and it's a stupid one. But what do you do with your programs on match days? Do you like roll them up and put in your match in your pocket, or do you like keep?
No, they're never going to roll it. You won't like this one, and it does make quite a few people laugh. I actually take a sandwich bag, which drives the missus up the wall, because I use all the sandwich bags. So when I get the program, it goes straight in the sandwich bag.
Yeah.
Because then it's going to be, so it doesn't get creased. It's well protected.
Right.
And then so when I get it home, it's still mint. Okay, so then it's. So I read it after the game. I don't read it before the game. I always read it after the game, and I see what's going on. And they're sort of kept in piles, and they drive the mist out of the wall, and that's to be collated into different areas and stuff. So I do look after them. Yeah, I've done so for a number of years. Really, I've probably got thousands of things really, but it's just great. You pick some up from any season, and oh god, wham to him, and when we had him up front, he couldn't hit a barn door, and all that. It's quite nice. And there's a lot of fans are very similar, really, in that respect.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. And like as I say, I rarely buy one. I bought a couple last season, but it was on the off chance. And I either leave them at my seat, not intentionally, or I lose them in the factory or something like that. But I appreciate the way that fans have come out in support for keeping the program this season. So I may start investing a little bit more on that side again. I mean, I've got programs behind me which were donated to me so I could get them framed and stuff like that. But I've never been a massive program fan. But this whole conversation, this whole movement that you've done and that you've got done with the club, all the things that Eddie's tried to do, it's kind of made me a little bit like, I suppose I best support the guys really, and just try.
Yeah, I must say, and I don't like to single out individuals really, but there has been an incredible response to the program being kept, as you've seen online. It's been some really great comments, and there's one guy in particular, Andrew Crowther, and we often have a few ding dongs online, but he's been absolutely superb.
You and ding dongs, really?
Yeah, occasionally, very very odd, I know. He's been brilliant, and there's really too many to mention. Graham, who sits with me in the Gordon Road as well. He was, a lot of people were kind of livid, when the news came out. And I just felt that it was just an area that I thought, I really believe I can do something here. And obviously the club have been really good, very accommodating. It would have been very easy for them just to shut it down, in all honesty. So, credit to Joe, I've got to say. And like yourself, I speak to Joe fairly regularly on other things. We talk about bits and pieces. And bear in mind that when all this was going on, we had the launch of the new kits. He's trying to sort out contracts with players. There's obviously new players coming in the door. There was a lot going on. So obviously from his, the program wasn't top of the tree when we're trying to make sure we got players for next season, and there's an awful lot of work going on in the background. So yeah, I've got to say he was brilliant for me. I know he's got a few detractors here and there, and I understand that. There's believe it or not, there's a few people that don't like me. I know you're going to find.
Oh, really? That's surprising.
To be honest though, this week I've been as popular as Warren, so I'm really I feel I'm getting there now.
You're getting there with Warren's stature. Warren's celebrity status within the social media world. But no, mate, I agree with you. I think there's a fundamental thing with Brad, Shannon, and Joe is that they are always ready and happy to listen to fans. I think, and this is testament to it. The program was dead. They've listened to fans and they've acted on it, and it's testament to them and the community thing and the family thing. I had conversations with Shannon. She's like, look, when I was going through a bad time recently, she's like, come and have a coffee. We're sitting and have a chat. And it was just like talking to a friend. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't, and it's all family orientated. And
we know it's a far cry. And as you know, I've been around, supporting the Gills for it's 50 years really. And I saw my first Gills game actually 50 years ago in August. So it's a long time. And obviously we went through some tough situations under the previous ownership. The one that always sticks in my mind is when Paul Scully wanted to change the kit to white and with the C France on the front. No consultation with the fans. You had supporters phoning up the sponsors. Absolute chaos, And we don't want to go back to anything like that. And it leads on to another thing. I must admit, I'm a big advocate of getting some fan, representation at board level. Really, I think that would be really, really useful. I'm not talking about me. I'm too long in the tooth for that. But I think it'd be useful sometimes because obviously the club are making a decision. They made a decision on the program based on what they could see in front of them. But I think in hindsight, probably a few conversations, maybe with the supporters club, maybe with other fans before that decision was made, might have been useful. Yeah. And obviously, I think we accept from time to time decisions are going to be made by the football club. They're not going to be popular. But, with perhaps a little bit more consultation beforehand, that might be useful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely, mate. And I think I like the way that they're going about things. I know Joe Comper gets a lot of stick for being managing director because, he doesn't know anything about football. I'm constructively critical towards recruitment. Everyone's critical about something. And I just think, but the fundamentals and the backbone, we talk about backbones of teams. The fundamental for me is Joe, Brad, and Shannon have got the best interests of us fans at heart. Like, I don't care if you support Crawley, right? I don't care if you don't know a lot about football, right? They have got the best interests of the fans at heart. And it is, as you say, it's a far cry from what we had before, when fans were getting kicked out of grounds for not agreeing with a certain four-eyed person, not yourself. But yeah, so
they're only for reading. I don't go around like this normally. Yeah.
No, I know, mate. I know. We've had plenty of drink in the cricketers or the factory and attended certain forums together, so I know that they're not full time. Not that it matters. I'm not saying that. Just so
I could take them off, mate, but you'd be a blur,
Well, it'd probably be better on your eyes, to be honest.
Yeah.
But so we're finished off there. I just want to quickly ask you a question. So, do you think that there's anything planned in terms of marketing or promotion during the launch of the new program or the continuation of the program?
Yeah, I think
the new season's started to attract new users.
I think there's going to be some work behind the scenes. I know Shannon is obviously heavily involved in the marketing side. I've been aware that she's looking at promoting things on that side of it. So kind of watch this space really. But obviously the level of publicity around this has been huge. Really, I know that the local newspapers brought it up. They did make me laugh. They sort of dragged over a few of my old tweets and stuff. I mean, I got to hand it to them. I was expecting.
I'm guaranteeing some of them were about Stephen Clements. They've got to have been about Stephen Clements.
Well, I was expecting to walk out of here and see the paparazzi at one stage, but some of the things they drag up did amuse me, I must admit. But no, it's like I say, it's been really, really positive. I've not going through the stuff on X. There's been probably one or two people that think it's a waste of time, and that's absolutely fine. There's never going to be anything that's going to be universally loved, is there? Let's be honest.
No.
So you've just got to take that on the chin. But overall, it's been fantastic, and I must say now, I really want to thank everyone that's been so supportive. It's been brilliant. Really been touched by it. It's been excellent. Delighted.
Yeah, and I think it just goes to prove, doesn't it? Like when we need to rally together, or when certain aspects of our club or areas of our club we need to rally together, we are rallying together still. I mean, it's not always that case. There are certain opinions that take it too far sometimes, but in the whole, we have a great fan base.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think you've got to accept. We've had it with managers. Like you mentioned Stephen, and obviously, Mark Bonner and Coleman and Gareth. That's always going to be the way. It's the same with players. Certain people will say, they didn't like Max Amer, or they don't like this player, don't like that player. It's always going to be, and I think, in all honesty, we're all guilty of going too far sometimes. But it's just the passion. It can overrun. And we've just got to take it on the chin. And everyone has their run-ins, but at the end of the day, we're all Jills, and I think generally it's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Obviously, we're not going to make this an hour show this evening because there's only so much we can talk about. But before we do go, is there any lingering thoughts or how you feel about what's happened in the last week or so, and the kind of your thoughts on that, really?
Well, from the programme point of view?
Yeah, or anything in general, really. Any housekeeping?
Yeah, I suppose I was always a little bit on edge with it because there came to a point where I'd done my work. I'd submitted a full and in my view a robust plan to Joe. Obviously, he passed it on to Shannon, so things were a little bit up in the air for a while, and it probably dragged on a little bit longer than I hoped it would for reasons I mentioned. Obviously, quite a lot going on at the football club. And then, Joe tipped me off and said, look, we're definitely going to do it. We're not quite sure what we're going to do print-wise yet. There was other considerations as well. So I was really pleased at that stage. And then, we had a final conversation, I think just before I came away. And he said, look, it's a goer. Shannon's happier with it. And then obviously there was, I think it was a couple of days, and then the news came out. I was, really, really pleased. I must admit, absolutely delighted. And like I say, massive thank you to everyone because our support's been brilliant. And certainly I won't be forgetting that in a hurry.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate, definitely. And as I say, I appreciate the want and need of the people that do want the programme. I probably will now buy one next season. So there you go. That's one more that we've got on board.
I will be checking on Monday. Yeah, you will need to hold it.
I'll make sure every day
on the Monday assessment. Absolutely, yeah.
But no, thanks, Stu. Thanks for joining us, mate. If you haven't already, then please give us a follow on X, The View from the Medway FanCast or TVFTM. YouTube, The View from the Medway FanCast, or the Facebook group at The View from the Medway. So it's been great to jump on. I mean, Stu is the founding member of the Monday Assessment, one of the two founding members of the Monday Assessment. So it's great that we can bring that a little bit of something different, and the programme remains for everyone who wants it. So I've been Chris, he's been Stu. Good night, and up the Jills.